You have a lot of people saying that there's no way that this black couple is capable of representing our country. Did she really get into Princeton? Is he really from this country? We were told that there's an order and that you don't belong at the top.
Did you ever struggle with your mental health while you were in the White House?
Yeah, I mean, I think...
I am Michelle.
And I am Craig.
Former First Lady, a best-selling author.
Michelle Obama. I am the First Lady's brother.
Former head coach at Brown and Oregon State.
My big brother.
And co-host of IMO with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson.
There is still always the sense of, am I good enough?
Really?
Because while
Even
the
now?
confidence, and that's the work that I'm doing. Like, if it's not enough now, I'm telling myself and my therapist, then it won't be enough.
Today, people talk about coaching confidence. When we grew up, leaders didn't do that. They told you how poorly you were doing, and then they hoped that the cream would rise to the top. Our parents did the exact opposite.
What did they instill in you to keep your self-confidence high when the world was trying to take you down?
This is what it would look like.
Welcome, everyone, to the School of Greatness. We have Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson in the house. Thank you guys for being here. Very excited.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
This is awesome.
Excited.
Very excited. You're in a brand new studio of the
It's
School of
good
Greatness.
looking.
Beautiful.
And
Elegant.
beautiful, elevated. We've got an amazing team that helped set this up. And one of the things that, right, fake fireplace going over here. I started the School of Greatness 12 years ago because I wanted to learn the lessons that I feel like I didn't learn in school.
Okay.
That I wanted to learn how to overcome insecurity, how to deal with failure, how to deal with navigating intimate breakups and getting into relationships consciously, and all these things that school didn't teach me. You guys both went to Ivy League schools, and you have done incredible things since college. But what I'm curious about is, what is one lesson each one of you has taught each other as adults that you didn't learn in school? Craig, I'll start with you. The biggest lesson that Michelle has taught you as an adult that you didn't learn in school.
I will tell you, I've learned a lot from my sister. And, you know, people, now that she's iconic, people think that my sister is older than me, but she is really 20 months younger than I am. And she is so full of wisdom, I could probably tick off about 4 or 5 different things. But recently, not in the recent past here, you said to me to make sure, because I have 4 children, 2 adult kids, but I have a 15 and a 13-year-old. And I am, as she will tell you, I'm the charter member of the ODC, which is the Old Dads Club.
Okay.
And being a charter member, you're continuously parenting. And she said to me, make sure that you're taking your wife out on dates. And, you know, my wife is a coach's wife, so she's used to handling 20 student athletes at a time, you know, or 20 people in our house at a time, and not saying a word about what her needs are.
Putting herself last.
Putting herself last, like a lot of women do, like most women do. I can even say that. And it was such nice advice to hear from her, because it enabled me to do it before my wife had to ask me to do it. And it's really, and
So if I talk to Kelly now, she'd say you're doing it.
You can check in.
on CC. No, this is really good because
This is really check, and we don't do anything but sit and talk about the kids, you know, when we go on these dates. But it's fun. They're old enough we can leave them at home on their own. And so she gave me that advice probably about 9 months ago. Maybe it was a year and a half ago.
And how has the relationship grown or thrived from that?
It feels like it's the same, but we're having fun when we go out.
Oh,
you know,
cool.
We're having fun, and it also allows us to let the kids sort of have the place to themselves and not tear it up, and give them some rope. And so it's a growth region for all of us. So
That's a beautiful lesson.
yeah, it's a good lesson I've
And
learned.
so Michelle, what's the biggest lesson your brothers taught you about life or anything that you didn't learn in school?
Craig is, there's such a a youthful, joyful innocence in him that you never lost. And that creates a lightness, that I think other people feel. I mean, I joke that everyone loves Craig, and I'm among them, right? And if he were a different kind of brother, I'd probably hate him because everybody loved him so much. I teased that my mother loved him more than she loved me. It's like I'm in the White House. She's living in the White House. When's Craig coming?
Really?
Craig's here. He showed up. We're at his house in Milwaukee, in Mequon, Milwaukee, and she's Mequon, somewhere outside of Milwaukee.
It's cold there. It's hard to speak the words.
Exactly.
It's freezing.
Exactly.
I know you know.
Yeah.
And she's raving about the wine he has in Wisconsin. I was like, Mom, you live in the White House. What more do I have to do? I'm First Lady of the United States, right? But any little sister could be resentful. But retaining that joy, retaining that kindness, and he's different as a coach on the bench. Sometimes he scares me and I'm like, who is this dude yelling at these little boys? But I'm trying to hold on and embrace more of that because in my line of work, there's a lot of cynicism. There are a lot of problems. There's a lot of in-your-face reasons to be less than optimistic.
Yeah.
And when I'm around you, Craig, everything is just like wonderful and new. No matter how many times he's seen it, he enters a space with this level of joy and awestruckness that, it's important to keep.
Did you ever lose that when you were in the White House? Like being in awe of how far you had come and how far you and Barack had, created your lives together? Or did you ever just feel like, oh, this is the norm now? And
I think we practice just staying level, not getting too high, not getting too low. I mean, and I think that became a habit. My husband's nature is that. He is very cool, calm, collected. He's an athlete, but he's the slowest walking person I've ever.
no urgency.
Do you walk that slow?
That island time.
He's an islander.
Island time.
Where he goes.
And he's like, why are you walking so fast? It's like, if I walked any slower, I'd be walking backwards. I don't even know how you do it. So he has a natural calm. My temperament, I'm a little more fiery. And if I were to let my emotions guide me, if I got too pumped about the good times and too down about the bad times, I'd be a mess. So I think there has been a little of, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we just did that. Okay, Great Wall of China. All right, what's next? Meeting with the Pope. So good to see you. Let's move on.
Really?
A private meeting with Nelson Mandela. That was really cool. But okay, now we have to do, it's just because the lows were like, we're mourning kids that were shot, We're at a site where people have lost their homes in a horrible tornado. We are grieving with military families. I'm visiting Walter Reed and, in the midst of the war and seeing rooms and rooms full of young men with their legs cut off and young wives with babies wondering, how are they going to live going forward? I mean, you talk about the peaks and the valleys. And I think getting through that, I've just learned to remain a little unplussed either way, just to get through it. And then in comes Mr. Whoa, wow, look at this. And it's like, that's so sweet, I mean, there's sometimes you need to just be like, this is the coolest thing ever. So yeah, I do think that I practiced a little more.
That's so interesting.
Staying in the pocket.
Because you had to really, it sounds like you had to keep your nervous system steady at all times. Otherwise, the highs and the lows could have made you exhausted emotionally, it sounds like. And as a basketball coach, you have to motivate and keep people steady as well when there's momentum and it's going and when you're down by 20. So did you, but as siblings, this is actually the first brother-sister combo that I've had on the show in 12 years.
Good.
I've had siblings, but not brother-sister. So this is interesting. Were you able to just be her big brother in the height of all this while she was in the White House? Or were you trying to coach her like you would your athletes?
Oh, the former, because I could not coach her like she's an athlete.
Oh.
Because I'm not saying you're not coachable, but
It's not in tennis right now, you know?
no, I was more there for support.
Okay.
Right, I was there. I was coaching her up on the side to get her her spirit up rather than technical things. Here's what you should do. I'd like to think that when we came to town, my family, my wife Kelly and the kids who came, it was like, all right, it's time for us to have some fun, like the old days.
Bring the lightness, the familiarity.
Yes. Bring the
normal.
The normalcy that we used to have when we were in Chicago, when our mom picked up all 4 of our kids and took them to one of our houses, and we had a barbecue on, Friday night. So I felt that was my role when they were in the White House. And then, I would say being able to sit with Barack and watch a basketball game. Although he's such a good multitasker. He'd have so much stuff going on and then have the game on, and he would know exactly what's going on in the game while he's doing all this other stuff. But it just was nice to sort of have normal family time, albeit in the White House.
Yeah. Try to make it familiar in an unfamiliar
Ignore
world.
all of this.
Yeah, exactly.
Bomb-proof class.
I also heard that you asked your brother to play basketball with Barack. Is that right?
I
To
sure did.
feel out if he's a good guy or if he's...
Yeah. Well, Lewis, you can appreciate this because being an athlete, and I know you're a football player,
Yeah,
but
I played D3 basketball, but not
But
D1.
see, here, this I was just going to say, most football players fashion themselves as basketball.
Of course, I was a basketball player first, and then
That's what they all
and then I
do.
stopped growing, and I was like, I'm not going to make it in the NBA, so let me go
you
try
switched to
football. I did.
So my dad used to. My dad and I talked basketball. Now, my dad wasn't a basketball player, but we talked sort of basketball and how the game brings out your real character.
It does.
Especially pickup basketball,
man.
because you have to call your own calls.
Oh, I know that.
And so my sister heard us popping off about that, and she said when they first met, hey, will you take Barack out? Because I really like this guy. I want to see if he's really real, if you like him based on what you and Dad said on the court.
And how long had you known him before
It
that?
was the first year. It was
okay.
the first year that we were dating because it was like, I like him. He's cute. He's funny. He's smart. We're starting to get close, but who is he?
What's his character?
What's his character?
What's inside of him?
And and when you're with the family, everybody's going to perform, at Thanksgiving dinner, or if they were just to go out for drinks. I mean, Barack was smart enough to know he presents well, right? But it wasn't just overhearing them talk about it. I mean, being the sister in a basketball culture, right? I was dragged along to all the sports. I spent my life in gyms.
Oh, man.
I was
She's still
athletic.
salty about it.
But it was just the norm. We were going to cheer him on in a sport because at the time Title IX hadn't kicked in, and even though I was kind of a tomboy, very athletic, there wasn't a place for me to put that energy, nor was it cool for girls to be athletes, especially if you were tall, because everybody assumed that. So I was the sister on the sidelines, got to meet all the cute basketball guys. So I wasn't complaining or anything, but I know sports and I understood the game, and I dated people that were on Craig's team, and I'd hear about them. Like, how were they in practice? How were they coachable? So I believe that myself, that, you learn a lot about a man in particular and how he engages in the game, right?
100%.
So I was like, take him out.
Really? So in
And
the
because
first year,
also Barack said he was a basketball player.
Yeah.
you're like, oh, let's
So
see
I
if he's
was
a real
also
player.
like, yeah, and if you say you're a player, and he didn't talk himself up, but he is a basketball fanatic. And I kind of wanted to know, was he an athlete? You know?
Yeah, is he really an athlete?
Is he
'Cause
really
if he's not,
an
I don't know if I'm
athlete?
gonna.
Because I wouldn't have minded if he wasn't, but I would have been suspicious if he had said he was, and then he couldn't even dribble the
He
ball.
talked a big game and he couldn't back it up.
That's exactly.
You know, so wait, so
Couldn't even dribble the ball.
So can you walk through the scenario of how this, did you call him and say, hey, let's go hoop it up. Let's play a pickup game. Is it
So-
one-on-one? What's the scenario?
Let me start with how she asked
Okay.
me. She said, hey, I want you to take him out and I want to know what he's really like. And the first thing I said, I'm not doing your dirty work. No, because I was worried that if he turned out to not be a good basketball player, I'm the one who has to say, oh no, this guy's a complete jerk.
But you were Ivy League, like, you know, MVP. You were a professional. You got drafted in the NBA.
Let me get to that.
You were a
Louis.
pro.
So listen, so it would be the guys I worked out with, it wouldn't be fair for him. So I said that to her. She was like, oh, come on, please, you got to do it. So I called up some guys that I knew who were like me, but weren't going to be trying to kill him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you were in Chicago at the time, I would have called you up.
Yeah.
I called Arnie Duncan up. I called my friend John Rogers up.
Athletes, but not like
Athletes.
NBA guys. Yeah,
But not the summer league guys that I'm working out with.
No.
And so I called them up and said, hey, we're playing up at I forgot where we were, University of Chicago.
No matter, yeah. Somewhere in Chicago.
Story.
Yeah.
University of Chicago.
Okay.
Let's go play. He came, and it was we started playing, and I'm just we're playing a nice friendly game, and it's fine.
Is this 5-on-5? Is 2-on-2?
No,
What is
it's
this?
3-on-3 and 4-on-4
Half court. Okay.
Because
So
you can hide in a full court game if you're not good.
Oh, yeah,
But
you
a
can
half
cherry
court,
pick, you can.
half court game. Half court game. You have to be engaged, or you'll get called out. But he was terrific, right? He was a decent player. And I always say he's a real lefty. So he dribbles to his left and shoots with his left hand. You know how some lefties are really right-handed, but they shoot with their left hand.
Yeah. And like for your audience.
My best friend Matt is that way.
See, Louis knows. See,
I do.
Louis, you know.
The athletes know.
The athletes know. But here's what I liked. You know how when you foul a guy, you foul a guy? And in a gentleman's game, you just say, hey, your ball, I fouled you.
Yeah.
You're not trying
You call it.
Yeah, you call it as the defender.
Yes.
And he did that. And I was like, that's a really good sign early on. And then the other thing is he didn't shoot too much, but he didn't pass too much. Like he took the open shots and he passed when he wasn't open. But the thing that really put him over the top was he didn't just pass me the ball knowing I was her brother.
Yeah, let's make you look good. Yeah.
Listen, you know how that is. Dude to be like, hey, Craig, you take the shot. And I'm like, oh, come on, man. So I was able to go back and report that the Robinson basketball.
We got married, so obviously
It worked out. Yeah.
The report.
She's heard
Now, here's the
story
thing.
so long.
If he
so much.
wasn't.
I'm just saying, if it hadn't worked out, I might not have kept dating.
Really?
I don't know.
If your brother would have
settled
said
with it.
something about, his character was really nasty, like he was really mean and get in fights.
They wouldn't have gotten married.
Really?
I would have addressed it. I would have had the conversation. It's like, sorry, I hear you were kind of a jerk on the court. What's that about, right? Why would you do that? Or, I would have had a discussion, and then I probably would have been looking for other signs. He didn't show it. The outcome of that pickup game was consistent with what I was seeing.
That's good.
Right.
Yeah.
His behavior matched his words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's and it's continued to be that.
That's
way.
beautiful.
I mean, Barack is who he appears to be. And he shows up well. He's somebody you want on your team.
That's beautiful.
And that was important to know as a woman who grew up in sports culture, right? That's important.
Yes.
That's a value that I hold dear. That's something I respect, not just in my male friendships, but in all my friendships.
Yeah.
Are you who you say you are? Do you show up well? Are you a team player? So yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. That's beautiful. Great story. I love that. But growing up, you guys, I think I heard you say in your podcast, which is an amazing show. I want people to go download it and watch it. You're talking about you grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment together, essentially with like a living room as your guys' bedroom up until you went to high school?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you shared a room for like 10, 12 years together.
Oh, yeah. We shared a room our whole time growing up.
Wow.
Until I went to high school.
Yeah.
And then we
turned the back porch into a bedroom. Yeah.
You know, finished it off and enclosed it and insulated it. And that became my
kitchen,
my bedroom. But I would say our entire apartment was as big as this studio area right here. And that was the kitchen. And in the kitchen had a table, so it wasn't a dining room.
Yeah.
You come through the hallway, that bathroom would have been right there, and the stairs down would have been across. This, which was considered the living room, was really the dining room. But we used it as a living room, 1 bedroom in there, and then the living room was there.
Wow.
That we used for our bedroom.
That's incredible.
We started out with our beds head to head like this when we were really little. And then when we got older, my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, Southside, who we called him that because he used to live on the West Side. We had 2 grandfathers, and we would say, which house are we going to? West Side Grandpa or South Side Grandpa? We used to say West Side. And then he moved to the South Side, so we named him Southside. He built a paneled T down the middle of that room. So that turned into 1 bedroom for me, 1 bedroom for Mish, and then a common room. So yeah, we shared.
But our father
space.
was a city worker. Yeah, he's a blue-collar city worker, worked for the water filtration plant, and we lived off of his salary until I went to high school because my parents thought it was important for my mom to stay home. So in order to make that work, and my father was very financially responsible, even though he didn't earn a lot of money, and they made sacrifices. So their view was, it doesn't matter the size of the house. You know, it's more important for you to have your mother there, who is, you know, so we could come home for lunch, and she was a room parent, and she knew our friends, but we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't grow up with stuff. And so, you know, when, you know, I talk about this with parents, when, you know, you hear young people waiting, it's like, well, I want to make sure I have a 6,000 square foot house and that we have savings for college already lined up before I can even think about getting married. You know, that wasn't what made us who we were, you know, and living in that little bitty space with 4 people in 1 bathroom, that built character for us, and it created a level of closeness and intimacy, and it's a reminder to us today that no matter how successful that we get, home is about who's there, not where we are, which was something I had to overcome with the idea of moving into the White House, which was amongst my biggest fears when Barack said he was going to run. I was like, if you win, how can we raise a family in that environment? You know, that's not normal to us.
No.
That weightiness was not, to me, something that, you know, could sustain a healthy family. And I worried about it, the weight of
it all.
The weight of it all. But what I came to learn, even in that environment, that it wasn't the house. As big as it is, it was us in that house.
That's so interesting.
So we had to find a way. And, you know, creating family is doing it in a small way. You know, if you think about it, it's like it's creating closeness. That's why everybody in families, they gather in the kitchen, right? I mean, in real close households, no matter how big the house is, everybody's in the kitchen. Because if they're really talking and wanting to connect, they want to be with each other, right? And it was that way in the White House. We would all wind up gathering this one center space, no matter what was going on, especially if Craig was over. You know, we wanted to be together. So, you know, it doesn't matter if you have 6,000 square feet or 600 square feet.
Wow. You know, the kitchen, we gather the kitchen because we're always hungry, Chris, right? You know, it's like, we're always going there, and then everyone else follows us and like, hey, you want to hang out with us? We're in the kitchen. Here's what I'm curious about, Michelle, and both of you have had successful careers and made big impacts in the world in your own way. How did you build belief in yourself that you were worthy of the success at such a high level? You as a coach and in the business world and the MBA and even going from a small little apartment with both of you to being in the most iconic house in the world.
Yeah.
Like, how do you believe you're deserving and worthy of that life when you come from such smaller, humbler beginnings?
Well, it's a step-by-step process. And if you got good, smart parents like we did, who don't even know what's coming, but they understood for us that they wanted to make us feel that way at our little kitchen table. So you begin feeling that because you feel it. You see your excellence in the eyes of your parents. Like, we had parents that really thought we were smart and funny and interesting, and they reflected that back to us. They wanted to hear what we thought. So we grew up thinking, we're so funny, we're so smart,
No joke.
we're so interesting. I know you want to hear what I have to say. I know I'm 5, but let me tell you my opinion about these things, right? So it starts there. And especially when you're poor Black kids from, on the south side of Chicago, I think our parents knew that what was coming for us was the absolute different message. That at every turn, what was awaiting us, regardless of who we were, there were going to be teachers and people who would be constantly lowering our bars for us anyway. So I think they fueled us with a level of can do it, must do itness.
Interesting.
That would give us a kind of armor as we went out and sort of started getting dinged
In the world. Yeah.
And
So what did they instill in you to keep your self-confidence high when the world was trying to take you down?
So I'll give it to you in coaching terms.
Yeah.
Before people were coaching confidence, they were coaching confidence.
Interesting. What would that look like? What would they say or do or react?
This is what it would look like. Mom, how do you learn how to read? And I'm 4 years old. Instead of saying you put letters together, she said, here, go get a book. I'll show you how to read. And she taught me how to read when I was 4 years old because I asked her, how do you read? And every time I asked her, how do you do something? She stopped what she was doing and she showed me. So then I felt, and then she would talk about how wonderful it was that I could read or that I could tell time or that we could go around the block on our bikes by ourselves. And that it's really interesting because today people talk about coaching confidence and leading with confidence. When we grew up, leaders didn't do that. They broke you down to build you back up.
They yelled at you.
They yelled at you, and they it was just a different mentality back then. Even in corporate America back then, people would put you through the gauntlet and didn't coach confidence. They told you how poorly you were doing, and then they hoped that the cream would rise to the top. Our parents did the exact opposite.
Man, how did they learn how to do that? Like,
they were ahead of the game.
And as Mom said, she tried to do the opposite of what was done for her because she came out of a generation of that generation of, they didn't know what they were doing with parenting. There was no philosophy. Kids were seen but not heard.
There was no conscious parenting.
There was no conscious parenting. And our parents were smart people. They weren't college educated, but they could have been. My mother could have been a teacher. She could have been a professor. She just didn't, there was no pathway that she saw for herself. So just like all of us, I mean, while there's some insecurity there's also in each of us this level of, I know more than they're giving me credit for, right? I think it's already there. And then it gets beaten out of you. It gets abused out of you. There are other things that get in the way. I think my mother always felt like every kid has the power and the ability to learn if you get out of their way.
Right.
And if you fuel it and you don't suffocate it. And my parents were sane people and we were blessed in that.
Wow.
And so that established a foundation for us to then go out in the world with this belief of, I'm pretty confident and competent because that's what our parents get. They forced us to be that way. And every time you succeed, And sometimes we rob kids of that, parents today, because we're trying to make sure kids don't fail. We're trying to avoid our hurt and our embarrassment with them failing. So we never really hand them their lives. And so they don't get those experiences. And so they miss out on those early, sort of building blocks of confidence that you need. Our parents handed that to us.
That's
and
beautiful.
so then there were the experiences that went along with it. We came into the world as good people, polite kids. We knew how to engage with teachers. That multiplies that that confidence and competence, because teaching your kid how to be socialized helps them, because better socialized kids, they get better feedback from the world.
Yes.
And we were always the kids that the teachers liked and loved. And so now you get a little bit of that. And then now you learn how to do that, right? And then so you just keep succeeding. And for me, one of the aha moments was actually going to Princeton, because I wasn't confident then, because I wasn't a great test taker. I was a great grade getter, but I wasn't good on SAT. So I had good grades, not great scores. So all the scores said, you don't belong at Princeton. And there were people who saw me, saw the color of my skin, and said, you're aiming too high, right? So luckily he went.
You were already there for 2 years, right? Or a year or two?
Yeah, I was there for 2 years, and she's being nice, but what she really said was, if this dude can get in, I know I'm getting in.
Yeah, I'm smarter than him.
She is a better student than I was. I was a guy who could do well on tests, but I never studied.
Interesting.
So my first years at Princeton, I got killed because you have to be able to study there.
Wow.
But my sister is studious and smart, and just she got frazzled on the test.
Yeah.
And me, I was like, process of elimination.
You imagine going to these schools being told that you're not ready. And that was my first insecurity of thinking, well, maybe I don't belong here. And that's the world telling you that you don't belong, even though it's like, well, all my experiences up until this point say that why wouldn't I belong here?
So how did you overcome that belief that you don't belong, or that other people are telling you you don't belong?
I got there and I looked around and went, oh my God.
Sat in a few classes
and sort of realized that affirmative action isn't just the color of your skin, but there were a lot of kids that were legacy kids. They were athletes. It was like, and then you sit in class with people, a lot of bright people, but there were a lot of people that were just, so you wonder, well, how'd you get here? Who told you you were ready, right? And then doing well in that environment. For me, it sort of, it sort of took the curtain off of this elitism.
It lifted the veil.
It lifted the veil. That's the phrase I was trying to come up with. It lifted the veil for me in a pretty. So if I'm here at the top schools in the world and I am succeeding, then all this other stuff is a lie.
Interesting.
You telling me that I can't, this is the scam. Like, you want me to think I don't belong here when I actually do. And so that was the first step of, let me trust my gut again. Let me go back to the foundation, the things that my parents were telling me that I thought maybe they just loved me, and start believing what's actually happening in the world. Let me trust my experiences.
Interesting.
And so I experienced my way into confidence. And the White House is just another Princeton, right?
Really?
And the experience was just the same. You have a lot of people saying that there's no way that this Black couple is capable of representing our country. They are not patriotic. Look at their fist bump. Did she really get into Princeton? Is he really from this country? Did he really go to Harvard? Is his, it's the same kind of because we can't see past our own prejudice. Let's question, because we were told that there is an order and that you don't belong at the top. And what I soon realized is that's not about me, that's about them, which goes back to what we learned at our kitchen table. It's like, you cannot base who you are and how you think of yourself on what anybody else other than who's at this table and knows you thinks, because everybody's bringing their own stuff to their opinion of who you are. So you have to do the work and let your work speak for itself.
That's fascinating, because if you're at, the position you were in for 8 years during that time, how are you able to keep the core nucleus of your closest friends and family to just only focus on what they think of you rather than what the world thinks of you, both at the extreme high and others extreme critical? Like, how did you not own your own hype of half the world or whatever, or most of the world, and then the extreme criticism?
It's like you can't listen to either.
Interesting.
Right? And so that's not to say that I didn't look at any press. Especially when you're campaigning, you can't help but know what things are. But what I learned was that I have to filter it. So the beauty of being in the White House is you have a comms team, a communications team. And I just get to the point where tell me the things that are objectively are things that I need to hear. And I just had to practice. And I wasn't always good at it, because I'd look through the clips, I'd look at stories every now and then. I'd dig a little too deep, good and bad.
Yeah.
And
feed the ego, and then also the
Exactly.
criticism. that doesn't feel
exactly. And it's like, well, I can't believe one and not the other. So let me just do the work. So I tried to develop a habit of getting my information, not firsthand, but third hand. So my comms director, tell me in this meeting what I need to know, what I need to be paying attention to. If there's an article or something about the girls or something that I need to know in preparation for this speech, give me that information. So I do what I tell young people do. Do not read the comments section. Just don't go there. If you're in social media and you're doing this work, do not let that stuff feed you. You have to be disciplined enough to just put your head down and do the work and let the work speak for you. So I would read things about the work. Did the speech work? Is the program working? Is it having impact? But all the other stuff, the op-eds and the commentary, it's like good and bad. I can't take it in because it would cloud the work.
That's interesting. And so it's really about, was I effective?
That's right.
And as a coach, you're seeing, were we effective? Maybe it wasn't pretty, maybe it wasn't perfect, but did we accomplish our goal? Did we win the game? Did we move the initiative forward?
That's right. Yeah.
And really not looking at the praise or the feedback too strongly as well on either spectrum, which I'm hearing you say is you had to regulate your emotions.
Yeah.
And it's something you probably have to do
As a coach
is like get student athletes or athletes to not react when someone gut punches them under the, and doesn't get called the foul.
Yeah.
And also not own their own hype too much.
Exactly, especially in the age of social media.
Oh, yeah.
All these guys want to read about themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a real challenge to try and get them to stay off their phones and reading, because most of the feedback is going to be negative. That's just the nature of being an
Somebody's
athlete.
going to take time to write.
It's going to be bad.
The criticism.
Yes.
Yeah, the critiques. And I got to ask you off camera, did I hear you also played with Jordan when he came back?
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to tell.
I mean, you can share real quick. So Jordan retires, goes to play baseball.
Jordan retired to play baseball, and when he came back, people that were hearing he was working out, and he wanted some guys to work out with who could play enough, but weren't like gorillas.
Yes.
While he was getting in shape. Tim Grover, who was his workout guy.
Tim's a buddy of mine.
So Tim knows the story, because Tim was the one who called Arnie Duncan, myself, John Rogers, and a couple other guys. And we play 2-on-2 or 3-on-3. And then when he got in shape, we play 5-on-5. And then when he was ready, when he got past us, he went to the real dudes to work out
Summer
with.
League.
Yeah, because I think I was in my late 30s probably then. So we could give him a safe game. We knew the game. We knew how to guard him without jumping into his landing spot so he'd get a twisted ankle. And it was just and he was so gracious.
That's cool.
But he was as tough as he was on on The Last Dance.
He didn't want to lose anything, probably.
He was trying to beat us every single time. And
he was the opposite of Barack. Yeah, he was like, he wasn't passing the ball. He
was working on his game, seriously, and working on his sort of emotional and mental attitude too. And he has been absolutely gracious every time I run into him. You know, when I was working for the Bucks, I'd run into him. Worked for the Knicks, I'd run into him. Would be at All-Star, and hey, Craigie, and he is just the same person that he is.
Wow.
He has always been the same person.
That's cool.
Yeah,
what a cool experience.
Oh, it was. But you know, I had played against him in the summer league in Chicago when he first came. So Chicago had one of the best summer league basketball leagues because Chicago was one of the few places where you had pros, college players, and high school players. So when Jordan got drafted by Chicago, we played up at Chicago State University.
College.
And you
guys probably heard about him kind of like growing up and all this stuff. You were in that world.
We were in the world. And then he shows up after he gets drafted and he's playing in the summer league that I'm playing in.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It was fantastic. It was just, the place was packed.
Great time to be in Chicago.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You guys were living the dream.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious about this, Michelle. I'm curious, did you ever struggle with your mental health while you were in the White House? Did you ever feel like the pressure's too big, the anxiety is too much, or the weight of it all was too much? Or do you feel like you were pretty steady throughout the whole time?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were surprisingly equipped for it. You know, and that's not to say that I didn't have my bad moments. We didn't have our bad days. We did, you know, but I didn't feel like we can't do this. We'll never make it through this. That's not, first of all, how we were raised, right? I mean, you're in it. We're gonna make this. It's gonna work. We're gonna show up every day. Every day we're gonna show up. And you also, I found that it's important for me and Barack to keep our sanity, our even keelness, because we were raising little kids.
Gosh, that's got to be so challenging. Like being a parent without the world looking at you constantly and having to make big decisions every day has got to be one of the most challenging things ever, right?
Yeah.
But then doing it, and how can you be a great mom, a great wife, a great, leader in the world as well, and take care of your health and your mindset? Like, how do you do all that at once while raising kids?
But it also helps to have them, because guess what kids are? They're a big distraction, and they're very self-centered. And they're very much about, okay, Dad, that's nice about the Middle East, but let me tell you about little Susie and what we did. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they keep you grounded, and because
You got to be in the present.
You got to be in the present, because that's where they are. It's like, I don't really know who Putin is, but let me tell you about Miss Cherney, okay? I mean, their worlds are real, and it was Barack. He reveled in that normalcy, right?
Really?
Just coming home from a day at the office, and being able to sit down with two chatty little girls and hear about their lives and remind him what's important, right? That helped. So it was a stress, but it was also a very grounding thing.
And it probably brought a lot of joy to your life too.
For
it's like
sure.
when you're dealing with
Right.
heavy, stressful things all day long, to have children bring love and joy and play and just wonder,
Yeah.
more of like what Craig brings to the world,
That's
right? Just
right.
that joy,
That's right.
like curiosity and awe in the moment.
One of the best stories about my husband is that he became a coach during his White House years. He coached Sasha's fourth grade basketball league,
Really?
the Vipers. And
How'd he do? How was his,
He did. I'll let her finish.
Okay,
He did
yeah.
well.
so he didn't start out as the coach, but we signed her up for rec basketball, and it's at some local YMCA in Chevy Chase. And of course, we're going to the games because it's basketball.
of course, you have to go.
And it's my baby, the one. He's got one that maybe will do it, right? So we're all going to the games. And also on the team was Maisie Biden, Joe Biden, the then vice president's granddaughter, who the Biden girls and our girls grew up together, friends. So imagine that rec league on any given Sunday. because we all went, right? The president, the vice president,
Secret
first,
Service,
second lady.
everyone, yeah.
2 details.
Dude, no, like 8 details because all
Wow.
the kids had details
that's
too.
right.
So the
They got their own bodyguards also.
ambulance, helicopters, SWAT people all over the gym, right?
It's like a little middle school gym, like,
It's
yeah,
middle
2
school
rafters,
gym,
like
parents,
nothing, yeah.
right? And of course, they're all still yelling, basketball, amazing. And I'm just like, Joe, you gotta like not yell. Barack, sit down. But it was a parent-coach league, and the 2 parents of the Vipers weren't professional coaches, and they really didn't know basketball. And it was very evident by game number 2 as Barack would just start sliding down to the coach's bench and just say, have her block that one and get them to tie their shoes. So he was sort of side coaching. And at the time, his aide was Reggie Love. Reggie Love was a Division I
Duke guy? Is it
Duke
the-
guy.
yeah.
That was his body guy. So it's he and Reggie. And they come out of the games really critiquing what wasn't going right. They weren't running plays. There were no practices. So they started making these giving side advice to these 2 parent coaches.
Oh my gosh.
So how do what do you do with that?
With the president, dude, giving you
So-
some coaching advice. You're just like,
Eventually,
your little whistle as a coach. Like,
he starts offering to run practice for the Vipers. So they come to like one of the downtown gyms in the Department of Agriculture or the Interior or whatever. So they take over a gym every week. They're coaching the Vipers. They teach them 2 plays. One was box and one was something else.
oh, not the triangle offense.
Not the triangle offense, because these little girls weren't even tying their shoes. They didn't know the basics.
Just tuck your shirt in, Yeah.
So eventually, Barack's on the bench with Reggie, with the parents, and they're running plays.
That's incredible.
Long and short of it is the Vipers won the championship.
Let's go. That's cool.
The Vipers won
yes.
the championship.
Well, we have, me and your daughter have something in common. We both played on a team called the Vipers.
Okay.
My arena football team was called the Vipers, so we have something in common there. That's amazing.
So you imagine what that does to, just to alleviate stress.
Oh, yeah.
That once a week, you're just a parent, and eventually, no matter who they were playing, he was just the Vipers coach. It was good for him. It was good for his relationship with our daughters. It made us focus on something other than the world crises that he was facing. So the girls brought us down, and he went to every parent-teacher conference.
Really?
Every single one, motorcade and all, which embarrassed the hell out of the girls.
I'm
It's
sure.
like, Dad, the SWAT guys are on the roof. They've got the machine guns out. And we were just like, just ignore it. This isn't about you.
Just ignore
we
it,
were
yeah.
just trying to make them focus on their lives. It's like, this president stuff, this is one thing. Your life is your life. And we are entering into it just like every parent. I'm going to the potluck. I'm going to stand on the soccer field. I'm going to, watch your tennis game. Tennis was a hard sport to watch. So I would stay in the car in the motorcade and kind of look, because it's hard to watch high school tennis, which Leah played, without showing up with all the with all the agents and stuff. So that I wouldn't do. But soccer, you could do.
Yeah. You can stand back far enough. Yeah.
Stand back far enough and interact with the parents in a normal way so that people would understand, I'm a mom. And these are my daughters.
And you want
and
the
I know
best
what's
for them.
going on.
Yeah.
I want the best for them. And we'll have sleepovers at the White House and the girls will come over. So that helped. That's a long way of saying that having young kids helped us stay normalized, and it helped us with our mental health as a family.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, how did you guys grew up with parents that weren't famous, that didn't have a lot of money, that weren't in the public eye, that weren't in, universities or in politics, and the world was paying attention to. But that wasn't the case for both of you. You were both public people in your own way and had a lot of fans and critics. And you had more money than your parents, more success, more opportunities, all these different things. How do you raise, both of you, how do you raise healthy, conscious kids to be good, loving, generous when they are given more financially, success opportunities, networking, when they're given more opportunities than what you were given?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. And the way we approach it is you all haven't done anything yet.
Right.
So you can't.
This isn't about you.
This is not about you yet. You got to earn your keep. And if you do your chores and you get good grades and you behave, then you start to get rewarded. But
because you don't want to rob the confidence of them making mistakes and building their own thing, right? So how do you do that?
Well, we're trying to do it like our parents did it. Coach them for confidence and hard work. The results will come. And I always thought that my parents did me such a justice. When I got older, I realized there were a lot of kids who I went to school with, both in high school and in college, whose parents were cracking the whip for them to get good grades, and it prevented them from getting good grades. And my parents always said, look, if you do your best, I trust that you'll get good grades. So don't worry about it. Just do your best. And whenever I didn't do my best and they asked me, I had to say I didn't do my best because it might come back in evidence at the end. But it was rare because they trained us to just do your best. That's all we want. We don't forget about the grades, do your best. And it was the same in sports. Just do your best. And I'm trying to do that with our kids, even though we have more than what we did growing up. Doesn't mean our kids have to have 4 times as much as that they would have had.
Right.
And it's not like, we would get pizza growing up when we got report cards. That was our reward for good report cards. Italian Fiesta, pizza.
Let's go.
We do the same with these kids, but we have pizza more often than when we did. Okay, that's we go out to dinner more. Of
course.
We go on better vacations.
Sure.
But when it comes down to just working, just work hard. Work hard, and you'll be rewarded. And that's it's lovely to see between my 2 older kids and her 2 older kids, or 2 kids. They're all adults out on their own in their, in their early 20s and early 30s, not in our basements.
Right.
So it's, and they figured out budgets. They figured out their relationship with money. And that's the one thing that my dad spent a good amount of time with us, showing us the value of money. And I think that's important too in this day and age, because we do have more money than I did growing up, and helping our kids understand. Like my wife, Kelly, she's only buys stuff on sale. So our kids look for things when they want something, they know it's got to be on sale or they got to spend their own money.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I think you've got to know who your kids are, right? And that starts really early. I think all of that work starts way earlier than a lot of parents think, because it's about boundaries.
Yes.
It's about respect. It's about teaching your kids how to hear no.
Not giving them everything. Huh?
Not giving them everything, and being okay with their disappointment. And that starts at 3 and 5. It started way before we entered the White House, even though they were really young. It starts with discipline and not being afraid to discipline your kids, doing it with love, but still doing it and being consistent. So our kids, even coming to the White House, were already at 7 and 10, those kids, right? So then the worry became like, and for all of our kids, I don't want you to think that you have to be this, right? Because the pressure can go the other way. And our kids are Obamas, right? They entered the room with a name and a face that, makes them have to prove something. So for my kids, because of who they are, they're already hard workers. They're already good people. I hear this everywhere they go. They know how to enter a room and treat people kindly. They're gracious. They've learned how to be diplomats in this process, because this whole experience that I was worried about also taught them how to maneuver in the world. So now I worry about them feeling like success has to look like what we did.
Getting to the White House or
I
getting
mean,
to the
it's
top.
just,
Yeah, it's
come on, like, this is unusual, right? This is not the norm.
And did your parenting style shift or evolve pre-White House, during the White House, and post-White House?
It evolved not because of where we were, but because of their ages, right? You know, my kids lived in the White House longer than they lived in any house. So they came in at 7 and 10, and they came out the year that Malia graduated. She graduated from high school and took a gap year in our last year because she didn't want to go to college as the president's daughter. She didn't want to have a detail.
Interesting.
Right? So she took a gap year for that reason. Sasha graduated from high school when we were, post White House. So they were different people. So now you move from creating boundaries to being an advisor, right? And slowly giving, for me, I felt like my job is to every year give you more rope. Every year give you more control of your life. Every year step back even more to get out of the way. And I wanted to do that before they left my house because I wanted to see, what do you do when you have all the rope? And mistakes were made.
Wow.
Louis, let me tell you. And mistakes were made.
Yeah.
But it was better for me to see those mistakes so we could come home and talk about it. We could, we could institute punishments. We could, I didn't want to know that when they were out of the house. And so I gave my kids a lot of their rope with each phase. But that had more to do with who they were and how I wanted them to develop, because they weren't going to have Secret Service their whole lives. So it's like, you got to learn how to drive.
Yeah.
And you got to learn how to drive with your agent. So we had to switch that around. It's like, you're driving in the car by yourself and your agents are following.
Wow.
So now you have to learn how to manage and communicate with a group of grown men on how you're moving in the world, because you have to do this.
Yes.
You have to learn how to get gas. You have to learn how to get on a bus. You have to learn how to get on a plane by yourself. And I can't be there to do that with you because I still have all that. Right.
Yes. Right.
So the changes were really based on the kid, what they needed, and the age. And my motto was, your life is soon going to be yours, so let's start now.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I've got about 5 minutes with you guys left, they're telling me. So I've got to call. I know. We'll have to do another one in the future. So many more basketball chat I want to have and everything else, But I've got a couple final questions, so hopefully they'll let me finish these few ones up. But before we ask them, I want people to download you guys' new podcast, IMO. I listened to the first episode where it was just of you two. I thought it was fascinating. Hearing these stories you guys share about early childhood, growing up, the lessons you learned, how you were able to instill confidence in each other, support one another, and overcome challenges in the world. I just think it was really cool. And all the other conversations you're having with people, I think is really needed right now. So IMO with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson. I want people to go download that. They can go to imopod.com. IMO podcasts everywhere on social media and all the good stuff. We'll have it linked up as well. But really inspiring, and I'm glad you guys are doing this. So congrats on the show. It's really cool. This is one more question I have for you, then I have a couple for both of you to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your confidence pre-White House, during White House, and then in the last decade since you've been in the White House. And I love your reflection on this as a brother and what you've witnessed. Do you feel like you're more confident now in the last 10 years, the 8 years in office, or the kind of 4 to 8 years before leading into the office?
Easy answer, now.
Really?
I think I'm my most confident now. I think, and by confidence, I mean, I feel like I can claim my wisdom. And I've said this before, I think maybe it's a little bit different for women. Maybe I can only speak as a woman because I'm a woman, but I feel like throughout my life, like a lot of women, I was reticent to claim what I knew. And I was always sort of, well, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe I won't speak up, or, Yeah, maybe this idea, it seems that way. Maybe, what I'm saying to these guys in the West Wing doesn't make any sense. I was, while I was doing my thing and having my own proofs, it still took until now for me to kind of go look over all this life and say, I kind of I kind of know a few things. I think I can now sit in my wisdom at 61. And I think a lot of that has to do is with the fact that I'm of course still a wife, but I'm not the first lady of the nation. I'm not the primary parent of Malia and Sasha. They are adults out there on their own. This is the first time in my life when every decision, good or bad, is mine to own.
Interesting.
And I feel good about owning it. I'm still working on it though, because there's still guilt. There's still a sense of obligation. There's still always the sense of, am I good enough?
Really?
Because while
Even
the
now?
confidence, I think it's there in so many of us.
Yeah.
Like that's what I've come to
Well, you
learn.
think, am I good enough? You've created and accomplished so much, not only professionally, but personally. So
But
at
is it-
61, you're still feeling that?
But is it enough? And that's the work that I'm doing. Like if
Interesting.
it's not enough now, I'm telling myself and my therapist, then it won't be enough. So now I have to determine for myself, because this is all an internal conversation, that I'm good, right? I just really now have the time to do that work.
Interesting.
Right? Because when you're climbing, slaying the dragons, you're just feeling the feelings. You don't have time to assess it, right? Raising kids, getting through hard times, writing books, doing book tours, working on the library with my husband, blah, blah, blah. But the decade that I was talking about that just went by, just like a flash, when was there time to reflect and work on that stuff?
Do the healing work.
To do the healing work, because after all that work, there still is healing from it. That was, that was a mighty experience that we had, right?
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
And so in these last years, I've been unpacking it. And I'm becoming better with my choices, feeling the most confident in myself and the most settled in that question of, am I good enough? And I'm finally starting to answer it. Yeah, I think I'm there. I think I'm there.
That's beautiful. I feel like we're just getting started, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to wrap this up. So I want to ask you guys both a final question. And that is, what is your definition of greatness? And I'll start with you, Craig. Your definition of greatness.
I think greatness is the ability to both have an impact on your own life and on other people's lives. I think if you can find a way to develop yourself and coach yourself up, you can inspire and develop and coach up others. And that's kind of what sort of my life's work has been, even before I was coaching. When as a player, as an executive, as a corporate worker, I always felt like we didn't inspire each other enough. Everybody was sort of an independent contractor. And if we could all be team players, we'd be in a better position.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I love that.
I think mine is similar because we were raised in similar ways. It's greatness is giving more than you get. Because what's it all for? Greatness, I think greatness, greater good. We all should be working for our greatness to affect the greater good. And then we all experience that greatness. Because greatness as an individual feat, I mean, yeah, I guess, right? I mean, you can sit in your own greatness and have all the stuff and be really alone. But the bigger greatness is putting that energy out. Yeah.
Amen. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having
Appreciate
us,
it.
man.
Appreciate it, Michelle. Thank you so much.
12 years, we can see the
Yes.
experience.
Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's go.
Smooth.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments below your biggest takeaway. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure to click the subscribe button right now, like this video. And also, if you're looking to create more financial freedom and live an abundant life, then make sure to get the new book, Make Money Easy, right now. The link is below. Go right to Amazon, get your copy, and I can't wait to see you in the next interview.
I don't think I could have had that conversation with him where I said, do you accept who I am today? Because I have changed a million times since then. But I could have said to him, do you see my soul and do you accept that? And he would have said, yes, I see your soul.
Oh my gosh, that's
and
beautiful.
I accept that.